The mother dog wouldn't move. No matter how much people honked, shouted, or tried to scare her off the road, she stood her ground. Her puppies huddled behind her, their tiny bodies trembling. Drivers were getting angry until someone finally realized why she was blocking the way. And when they did, silence fell, because what they saw next, it was enough to bring anyone to tears. This is a story about a mother's love, the kind that defies logic, risk, and even danger. A mother dog, standing firm, protecting her puppies, with every ounce of courage in her heart. But what was she protecting them from? And why was she willing to put herself in harm's way? The answer will break your heart. Stay with me until the end, because this is a story you won't forget. The city was alive with noise. Engines roared, car horns blared, and impatient drivers leaned out of their windows, shouting at each other. It was rush hour, and the road was a mess of frustration and movement. People were in a hurry. They had places to be, appointments to make, homes to reach, dinners waiting on their tables. No one had time for delays, and yet, traffic had come to an unexpected halt. At first, it wasn't clear why. The cars at the front of the jam weren't moving, even though there wasn't an accident or a red light. The confusion spread like wildfire. Drivers craned their necks, looking ahead to see what was blocking their path. That's when they saw her, a dog. She stood in the middle of the road, small compared to the vehicles surrounding her, yet somehow unshakable. Her golden brown fur was dusted with dirt. Her body lean from what must have been weeks, maybe months, of scavenging for food. She wasn't running. She wasn't limping. She was standing her ground. At first, most people assumed she was just another stray. The city had plenty of them, dogs wandering the streets, looking for scraps, dodging traffic as they moved between alleys. Normally, they stayed out of the way, but this one was different. She wasn't searching for food. She wasn't sniffing around for shelter. She was staring straight ahead, her dark eyes fixed on something unseen. Her ears flicked at the sound of honking horns, but she didn't flinch. And behind her, pressed tightly against the curb, were 3 tiny puppies, huddled together. Their little bodies shivered despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. Their fur was thin, their ribs faintly visible beneath their delicate frames. One of them, smaller than the rest, had its eyes closed, its body rising and falling with unsteady breaths. They were scared, they were hungry, and their mother wasn't going anywhere. A man in a blue sedan lost his patience first. He slammed his hand against the steering wheel, the sound sharp and angry. "Move, you stupid mutt," he shouted, revving his engine as if the noise would scare her off. The mother dog didn't move. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she stood even taller, her legs slightly apart, her tail raised, not in aggression, but in determination. She wasn't just standing there for no reason. She was protecting something. The honking grew louder. Other drivers joined in, frustrated by the delay. Another man, this one in a leather jacket, got out of his car. He sighed, muttering under his breath, and started walking toward the dog. "Come on, get out of the way," he grumbled, waving his arms. "Go, shoo." The mother dog stood her ground. She didn't growl. She didn't bare her teeth. She just stood there, watching him with unblinking eyes. Something about the way she stared at him made him hesitate. It wasn't the look of a stray searching for food. It wasn't the look of a lost animal confused by the noise of the city. It was something deeper. It was deliberate. It was unwavering. The man stopped. For a moment, he actually considered stepping closer, but something about her stance made him rethink. Then, suddenly, a woman's voice cut through the chaos. "Wait!" The crowd turned. A young woman on a bicycle had stopped near the scene. She had seen everything, watched as the dog refused to move, saw how she shielded the trembling puppies behind her. Her heart was pounding. She had seen stray dogs before, but this was different. Something wasn't right. She slowly dismounted her bike, stepping forward. Unlike the others, she wasn't trying to scare the dog away. She was trying to understand. Then she saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. A 4th puppy. It was farther out, in the middle of the street, much smaller than the others, and it wasn't moving. The realization hit her like a punch to the chest. The mother wasn't blocking the road for no reason. She wasn't being stubborn. She was protecting her baby, the one that hadn't made it across. Everything suddenly made sense. The way she stood like a shield, the way she refused to budge, no matter how many people shouted or honked. She was waiting. She was risking her own life to make sure no car would run over her tiny, helpless baby. Tears burned in the young woman's eyes. "Oh my God," she whispered. She turned to the crowd, her voice urgent. "We have to help her." The reaction was mixed. Some people looked away, uncomfortable. Others shook their heads. They were in a rush. They didn't have time for this. Are you crazy? The man in the blue sedan scoffed. It's just a dog. But to the mother standing in the middle of the road, this wasn't just anything. This was her child, and she wasn't leaving without it. The young woman clenched her fists. If no one else was going to do something, she would. She took a cautious step forward. The mother immediately stiffened. Her muscles tensed. Her ears perked up. For the first time since the chaos began, she looked away from the road and looked straight at the young woman. A silent warning, a silent plea. For a few heartbeats, the two locked eyes. And then, something incredible happened. The mother relaxed. Her shoulders dropped. Her tail lowered slightly. She trusted her. The young woman swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Slowly, very slowly, she stepped around the mother, her eyes fixed on the tiny, unmoving puppy in the middle of the road. Cars zoomed past on the other lane. The smell of burning rubber filled the air. The tiny puppy shivered. The mother whimpered. And then, the young woman lunged forward. She scooped the tiny, fragile puppy into her arms and ran back. The mother immediately rushed to her side. She sniffed her baby all over, nudging it with her nose. Her tail wagged just once, and for the first time since this all started, she relaxed. She turned back toward the road one last time, as if making sure there were no more dangers left. Then, satisfied, she turned, nudging her puppies forward, and walked away. She had done it. She had saved her baby, and she had never given up, not for a single second. The young woman watched them go, her heart still racing, and as the mother disappeared into the alley, with her little ones safe by her side, she knew she had just witnessed something she would never forget. Because a mother's love, it knows no bounds. The world kept moving, but for the mother dog, time had stopped. She stood in the middle of the road, her legs tense, her head high, her ears twitching at the sounds of roaring engines and impatient honks. Yet, she did not move. The woman on the bicycle had seen many things in the city. Stray dogs wandering, people in a hurry, cars swerving through traffic like they owned the streets. But this was different. This was desperation. She felt it before she even saw the reason why. Her heart pounded as she took a cautious step forward, scanning the street carefully. The mother dog watched her, not with aggression, not with fear, but with something else, something like hope. And then the woman saw it, a fourth puppy. It was lying in the middle of the street, motionless except for the tiny rise and fall of its fragile body, smaller than the others, weaker. It was barely breathing. A lump formed in her throat. The mother dog hadn't just been blocking the road for no reason. She had been protecting her baby, alone, vulnerable, inches from disaster. Every time a car sped past, the gust of wind made the tiny creature tremble. Its fur ruffled in the draft, its little body shivering with exhaustion and fear. Had it fallen behind? Had it been too weak to keep up with its mother and siblings? Or had it frozen in fear, watching the giant metal machine zoom past? Too scared to move? It didn't matter. What mattered was that it was still in danger, and the mother dog refused to leave it behind. Tears burned in the woman's eyes. The scene was heartbreaking, but more than that, it was powerful. This mother had stood her ground against something so much bigger than her. Not just against the traffic, not just against the humans shouting at her, but against the world itself. A world that had been cruel to her, a world that had turned its back on her, a world that didn't care about a stray dog trying to keep her babies alive. But she cared, and she wasn't moving until her baby was safe. The woman turned to the crowd. Her voice shook with urgency. We have to help her. Silence. People exchanged glances. A man in a business suit checked his watch. Another woman, clutching a shopping bag, shifted uncomfortably. No one moved. The road was busy. The cars weren't stopping. The drivers were already impatient. Someone muttered, "It's just a dog." The woman felt frustration tighten in her chest. Just a dog? Just a mother? Would they say the same thing if it were a human child lying in the street? She clenched her fists. If no one else was going to do something, she would. She started to step forward, but before she could, a man in a dark jacket moved. He wasn't part of the crowd. He hadn't been watching from the start, but he had seen enough. Without hesitating, he stepped straight into traffic, arms raised, palms out. The moment stretched into eternity. The first car slowed, then another. Within seconds, the entire lane had come to a standstill. A wall of cars, a wall protecting the fragile life in the middle of the road. More people stepped forward. A woman with a child on her hip, an elderly man with a cane. One by one, they moved without speaking, without needing to be told what to do. The mother dog remained still, her dark eyes flicking between them and her tiny, helpless puppy. For the first time, her tail lowered slightly. not in fear, but in something like relief. The woman on the bicycle took a deep breath. Now or never, she knelt down, her hands trembling as she reached for the fragile creature. Up close, the puppy was even smaller than it had looked from a distance. Its fur was thin, its ribs faintly visible beneath its tiny frame, and its breathing was shallow. So fragile, so helpless, so utterly dependent on the mother, who had risked everything to keep it safe. The woman moved carefully, gently scooping the puppy into her arms. It barely reacted, its tiny body limp against her hands. A soft, tired whimper escaped its lips. And then, the mother dog moved. For the first time since the chaos began, she stepped forward, her head lowered, her nose brushing against her baby. She sniffed it once, then again, and then, her body relaxed. It was safe. Her baby was safe. For the first time in what must have felt like forever, the fear in her eyes faded. The woman carefully stepped back toward the curb, cradling the puppy in her arms. The mother followed her, without hesitation. The second her paws touched the sidewalk, a wave of relief seemed to wash over her. She turned back, one last time, toward the cars, the people, the chaos she had stood against. And then, she nudged her puppies forward. 1 step, 2 steps, and just like that, she was gone, slipping into the alley, disappearing into the city, her baby safe at her side. The crowd remained frozen for a moment, watching the spot where she had stood so bravely. One by one, people lowered their heads. Someone whispered, "I can't believe she waited." The woman on the bicycle blinked back tears. She could, because that's what a mother does. She waits, she protects, she never gives up. And even though no one in that crowd would ever see her again, none of them would forget her, because a mother's love, it's the strongest force in the world. And that day, on a busy city street, they had all witnessed it firsthand. The woman holding the tiny puppy barely breathed as she knelt down. The mother dog stood just inches away, her body tense, unblinking, waiting. For a brief moment, everything felt frozen in time. The people watching, the cars waiting, the city's usual noise, all of it faded into the background. This moment was hers, a mother's moment. Gently, the woman lowered the puppy onto the pavement. It was still weak, still trembling, its frail body barely able to respond. Would it even survive? The mother dog stepped forward, her movements slow, deliberate. She sniffed the tiny body, nose pressing into the fragile fur. Once, twice, checking, reassuring herself. Her breath ruffled its fur. She nudged it softly, as if to say, "I'm here. You're safe now." Nothing. The puppy didn't move. A whisper of fear ran through the crowd. Was it too late? The mother leaned in closer, sniffing deeper, pressing her nose against its tiny head. And then, she licked it. Once, a slow, deliberate swipe across its face. Twice, her tongue moved gently over its tiny ears, smoothing its fur. The puppy stirred, a tiny twitch of its nose, a faint, barely audible whimper. And then it blinked. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. The mother licked it again, faster this time, her tail quivering with emotion. The puppy let out a soft, tired squeak, the sound of life. And for the first time, since this entire ordeal began, the mother wagged her tail. A single, small wag at first, then another, then faster, more fierce, more alive. The relief radiated from her. A mother's pure, unshakable love, expressed in something as simple as the wag of her tail. Somewhere in the crowd, someone sniffled. Someone else wiped their eyes. People had come here frustrated, honking their horns, angry that a stray dog had blocked the road. But now, they stood there, motionless, watching something far bigger than any of them. Something undeniable, something real. The raw, unfiltered love of a mother who had risked everything. She hadn't done it out of stubbornness. She hadn't ignored the danger out of ignorance. She had done it because she was a mother. And mothers don't leave their babies behind, no matter the odds, no matter the risk. No matter what, the woman who had rescued the puppy felt a lump in her throat. She had seen compassion before. She had seen sacrifice before. But never like this. Never so pure, so instinctual, so fierce. This mother dog, abandoned by society, left to fend for herself on the streets, had done something even some humans fail to do. She had stood her ground. She had faced down traffic. She had refused to move until her baby was safe. And now she had won. The small puppy let out another whimper and nestled into her fur, seeking warmth, seeking safety. The mother nuzzled it, wrapping her body around it like a shield. The other puppies, still huddled near the sidewalk, inched closer. Their tiny tails wagged as they reunited with their sibling. And for the first time in what must have felt like forever, the mother relaxed. She wasn't alone anymore. She had her babies. They were together. They were safe. And that was all that mattered. Silence stretched across the street. The people who had been impatient lowered their eyes. Some looked away, ashamed of the way they had honked, the way they had yelled, because now they understood. They had witnessed something they would never forget. The woman who had saved the puppy took a step back. She wanted to do more, to help, to offer food, shelter, safety. But something told her, this mother already had everything she needed, because she had her family, and family was enough. Slowly, the mother dog rose to her feet. She looked up, just for a moment, at the woman who had saved her baby. There were no words. There didn't need to be. That single glance was enough. A silent thank you. Then, she turned to her puppies and nudged them forward. One by one, they followed her. Tiny, wobbly steps. A small parade of resilience. And just like that, she walked away. Back into the world. Back into the unknown. But she didn't look back. She didn't have to. She had done what she came here to do. And her baby was safe. The woman stood frozen for a moment, watching as the mother dog disappeared into the alley with her puppies. A part of her wanted to follow immediately, but another part hesitated. She had done what she could. She had saved the puppy, stopped the traffic, and watched the mother reunite with her babies. But was that enough? Would they be safe? As she stared down the dark alley, her heart tightened. She knew the truth. This was just another battle won, but the war wasn't over. These weren't just dogs. They were survivors, fighters, a mother who had risked everything for her children, and puppies who had barely opened their eyes to a world that had already tried to take them away. The thought haunted her all night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the little family curled up in a cold, damp corner somewhere. No food, no safety, just the darkness of an unforgiving world. That's when she made up her mind. She wasn't done. She couldn't be. So the next morning, just as the sun began to rise, she packed a bag, a few old blankets, some leftover food, a small bowl of water, and then she went back. When she reached the alley, her heart pounded. What if they were gone? What if something had happened in the night? She stepped forward slowly, eyes scanning every shadow, searching. Then she saw them, huddled together against the brick wall, the mother dog's tired eyes blinking up at her. She had been awake all night, watching, guarding, protecting. The woman knelt down, placing the food a few feet away. The puppies stirred, their tiny noses twitching at the scent. The mother dog lifted her head. She sniffed the air, but she didn't move. Her body was tense, her ribs rising and falling with slow, careful breaths. Would she trust again? Could she? Minutes passed. Then finally she moved. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped forward and sniffed the food. And then she ate. The woman exhaled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Days turned into a week, and every single day, the woman came back. Sometimes, she brought better food. Sometimes, she just sat there, waiting, letting the mother dog see that she wasn't going to leave. The mother never came close. She watched from a distance, her deep brown eyes always filled with quiet worry and exhaustion. She was still guarding something, not just her puppies, but her trust. She had lived long enough to know that humans were dangerous. They yelled. They threw things. They turned their backs. She had no reason to believe this woman was any different, but the woman kept coming back, and slowly, things changed. The mother dog stopped growling when she approached. She stopped flinching when the woman reached out to place the food down. And then, one evening it happened. The woman stretched out her hand, letting it rest on the pavement. She didn't move. She just waited, and after a long, long silence, the mother took a step forward, then another, and another, until finally, she was just inches away. Her nose twitched. She sniffed the woman's fingers, and then, in a moment so small yet so profound, she let the woman touch her, a soft stroke across her tired fur, a gentle moment that said, "I see you. I won't hurt you. You're safe." The mother closed her eyes for a second, a breath of relief, a moment of trust, and that's when the woman knew. This wasn't just a stray dog. This was a fighter, a protector, a mother who had given everything and deserved more than a life in the streets. That night, the woman made the call. She had been hesitant before, worried that trying to take the mother and her puppies away too soon would break the fragile trust they had built. But she also knew the truth. They wouldn't survive like this. Not forever. And the mother deserved better. So she called a local rescue organization, explaining everything. The mother's courage, the puppy's struggle, the silent war this little family had been fighting every single day. And just like that, a plan was set in motion. When the rescuers arrived, the mother froze. She had been betrayed before. She had learned to fear cages, leashes, and human hands that reached out too quickly. So she tried to run, but the woman, the one person she had learned to trust, was there. And when she knelt down, whispered softly, and reached out her hand, the mother didn't fight. She let herself be carried, not because she wasn't afraid, but because, deep down, she wanted to believe. And this time, she let herself. The puppies were safe. The mother was safe. And for the first time in what must have felt like forever, they had a chance. A real chance. The rescue center provided medical care, warm blankets, food that didn't come from a trash bin. The mother, once skin and bones, started to fill out again. Her ribs weren't as visible anymore. Her fur, once dull and rough, started to shine again. And the best part, she wasn't alone. She wasn't hiding in an alley anymore, waiting for danger to strike. She was loved. She was protected. She had found a home. Weeks passed, and then one day the news came. The adoption papers had been signed. The mother and her puppies weren't going back to the streets. They had found a family, a real one, a family that saw them, fought for them, and promised them a life beyond survival. A life where a mother didn't have to stand in the middle of a dangerous road, blocking cars with her body, just to save her baby. A life where she could finally rest. And when the woman who had saved them came to say goodbye, she knelt one last time. She stretched out her hand. The mother, once so afraid, once so distant, stepped forward, and this time, she licked her hand. A silent thank you, a final moment, and then she was gone, off to her new life. A life she had fought for, a life she had won. And that's the story. A story of love, of survival, of a mother who refused to give up, and of the people who, against all odds, refused to let her down. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a mother can do is stand her ground. And sometimes, the bravest thing a human can do is stand beside her. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.